conscious psychic like Uri Geller, some of these guys that they were testing back in the 70s, they were able to remote view what was happening inside a Soviet laboratory. They used to call it supernatural, but it's not supernatural. We understand the physics of it. Everything I'm saying is severe ontological shock, which most people won't understand, or they may be afraid.
Welcome to Bay Area Innovators. Today we continue our conversation with Dr. Jack Sarfatti. We will talk about his involvement in the Stargate project, a secret initiative organized by the US Army in the 1970s, as well as his research on remote viewing, cosmic consciousness, and more.
We live in a designer universe, but the designer is in the future. God is a cosmic scale consciousness. I could draw you pictures and stuff like that, but this is perfectly now well understood.
We will also take a stroll to the famed Café Trieste, San Francisco's hub for poets and writers. This is Bay Area Innovators, and I'm your host, Steve Espas. Dr. Sarfatti, welcome back. We want to continue our discussion that we had last week. We want to talk next about Stargate and remote viewing. Please tell us your experience, what you know, and if you've been involved with this project, Stargate.
Yes, well, that was what I told you last time, that when they came to me and said, Jack, we want you to work on two problems. One is consciousness, and the other is how do flying saucers fly. Well, the Stargate was the consciousness problem, okay? And at that point, it was just empirical. Working with Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ and those people, Uri Geller, Andrea Puharich, even David Bohm got involved. We did tests with David Bohm, Fred Allen Wolf. That whole story is described very well in David Kaiser's book, How the Hippies Saved Physics, which is also, you can see it on Nova. The Nova program is called Einstein's Riddle. And David Kaiser, MIT professor of physics, history of science. They were mainly. I was only involved in it in a fairly short time. Helped them do some field work, going out with the targets. Just helping them with the protocol. It was a Central Intelligence Agency project. Mm-hmm. Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, ran it. Okay, but my main interest as a theoretical physicist was to try to understand how it works. Mm-hmm.
And how does it work?
It works by what I was telling you, action, reaction. The explanation of consciousness, because once you have action, reaction, you also have what's called entanglement signaling. Mm-hmm. That means if your mind, your mind is a big wave function, basically. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's two wave functions, one from the future and one from the past, but that's a technical detail. We have what's called a destiny mind and a history mind. Our history mind is our memories, our past memories. Our destiny mind is our creativity and anticipating the future and precognition, stuff like seeing. But creativity evolves what's called the destiny mind, back from the future mind, let's call it. And this is all mathematics, so it's called the Yakia Aharonov two-state vector theory. I'm saying it in kind of like hyperbolic popular language, but this is all really rigorous mathematics. Okay, we theoretical physicists, we speak mathematics. So the point is, okay, with ordinary quantum theory, you see, without action-reaction, telepathy and remote viewing would be not possible. Because even though your wave function, your mind wave, and my mind wave are merged together, are entangled, like a mind meld, Star Trek, the mind meld, that's entanglement. The mind meld's entanglement, right? Except if it was ordinary quantum mechanics, you would just you'd see random noise, white noise. I would see random noise. We could not communicate with each other directly. We could only if we exchange a classical ordinary signal, like a light signal, which takes a certain amount of time. Because then it's like we have a coded message. It looks like random stuff, but you have a key. You can decipher the code, and then we can communicate indirectly that way. And that is called quantum cryptography today. That is where, okay, the Chinese Communist CCP, they have now this quantum cryptographic space satellite network, right? It's based on ordinary quantum mechanics without action-reaction. So they think that this is totally secure. It actually may not be, because they left out something, okay? And it's not just the Chinese it's the Pentagon, it's the Swiss banks, it's the banking system, everything where they're using quantum cryptographic techniques. They think you cannot, well, they've already, maybe with a quantum computer you could hack it, but it's still like a Maginot Line, with this new thing, like, okay, a conscious psychic like Uri Geller, maybe, in principle. I'm not saying he actually did, but in principle, or Ingo Swann, Pat Price, some of these guys that they were testing back in the 70s, that they could, remote view, in fact, they did. They were able to remote view what was happening inside a Soviet laboratory, right?
Let's clarify what remote viewing is. It's the ability for some people to see things far away, as they are without being there, or maybe even going in the past, right?
In the future too, anywhere.
In the future.
It past, anywhere, it doesn't matter. They used to call it supernatural, but it's not supernatural. We understand the physics of it.
Yes.
And basically all it is, it's because of the action-reaction between the waves and the particles, that enables you to use entanglement for direct communication without needing this classical signal to unlock, to decrypt it, okay? So, and in fact, our ordinary consciousness is doing that. The consciousness in the brain, that we're using this action-reaction all the time. So we're doing this entanglement signaling on a small scale at different parts of the brain. We're doing it, it's like a fractal, it's on all scales. So what's happened, and you have to talk to Russell Targ. He's still alive, if he'll talk to you. He's 90 years old. Yes, I mean, the point is that we understand the mechanism. All this telepathy, psychokinesis, remote viewing, precognition, we understand it as what is called the post-quantum mechanical theory of entanglement signaling, because of action-reaction between the quantum waves and the classical particles and the classical electromagnetic and the classical gravitational fields. We understand, we have a coherent narrative in which all this stuff fits very beautifully. It's a beautiful, beautiful narrative, beautiful picture. We have a story, a coherent story, explains all this stuff, explains what's happening now, what's happening with the drones.
Next, I want to change gears and talk about a different topic, and that is the creation of the universe and a creator. I don't want to say religion, but a God or a creator creating the universe versus randomly being created by itself.
We live in a designer universe. We live in a designer universe, but the designer is in the future. God is a cosmic scale consciousness that lives on what's called our dark energy future horizon. See, you have to go into cosmology. I could draw you pictures and stuff like that, but this is perfectly now well understood. It's basically the Lenny Susskind world hologram theory.
Well, isn't his theory that there's an infinite number of universes?
Well, that's a different thing. Okay. Well, I'm talking now about the observable universe. It's just a piece. Yeah, there may be many universes. I'm talking about now what's called the observable universe. It's also called the causal diamond. It's what we can see with light rays moving through vacuum. We're limited, okay. So we have what's called a past particle horizon. In other words, if our only way of getting information is through classical, like SETI, electromagnetic signals, like radio, radar, television, all that, just all this stuff, then we can only see a limited region of the past of the universe, and we can only, in principle, be influenced backwards in time by a limited region of the future universe. Okay, both things are happening in quantum mechanics now. You have entanglement. All this entanglement happens because we have things, what are called past causes or historical causes. Past cause, present effects. But we also have back from the future advanced, what Aharonov calls destiny causes. So whatever is happening right now, here and now, is because of things that have already happened, but also destiny because of things that are going to happen. Both of them. It's called a weak measurement. It's a whole lot of work, not just me. Okay.
Someone I interviewed before mentioned that the whole universe is the creator or the God.
We have what's called the dark energy that's accelerating the universe, this dark energy thing. It turns out that dark energy means that in the future we have what's called a future de Sitter cosmological horizon. It's like a two-dimensional surface. It's like a boundary of what we can see, in principle, ever see, using light signals, okay? But that two-dimensional boundary, it's called horizon, is like a holographic plate, what Lenny Susskind would call the holographic screen. And there are these quantum entanglement patterns, the mental wave function. That is what Stephen Hawking called the mind of God. It's a cosmic consciousness. It's like a hologram screen. And it is projecting with these destiny waves back from the future influences. It is projecting, and what it's projecting, we are like the three-dimensional hologram images. We're the images. So, it's like we are thoughts in the mind of God, if you want to say. The new physics, the new cosmology, is very much like Teilhard de Chardin, Omega Point. Teilhard de Chardin was a Jesuit Catholic priest in the 1920s, and somehow he saw this, but he was actually a paleontologist. He was a scientist, but in any case he knew some physics. I'm sure he read James Jeans, everything. He knew all that stuff. He was smart man. The Jesuits quite smart, most of them, and so he called the Omega Point. The Catholic, the Vatican didn't like him. I said maybe now they like him. I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to the Pope and explain it to him. But it turns out that the Teilhard de Chardin, that Catholic theology, that Jesuit theology, the Omega Point is exactly the Lenny Susskind's world hologram. Everything I'm telling you. So you can say that the universe itself is conscious, but the consciousness lives on this future horizon, and we are images that are kind of projected backwards in time. So the universe is created back from the future. Because that's where in fact, the mind of God has about 10 to the 123 quantum bits. When I say God, I'm talking about the consciousness that is in control of the observable universe, the gravity field of the observable universe. Now, whether that particular consciousness cares about human beings, all the stuff with the Christian theology and the Muhammad, that's another issue.
Exactly. Yes.
That's another issue to get into, because there are angels and demons. there are lesser.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them are what we're seeing in the drones, right?
Yes.
There's a whole thing there. The aliens. See, what are the aliens? The aliens are simply these advanced intelligences, but they're able to travel in time. So some of them are coming back from the future. Or they could also come from the past. They can go wherever they want to go.
This Bay Area Innovators episode is sponsored by Pire Casara Clothiers, an Italian menswear store that brings timeless European style with a modern edge to Sunnyvale and the Bay Area for over 50 years. From top Italian suits and shoes to the exclusive Tommy Bahama line, they've got your look covered. Check out their website at pirecasaraclothiers.com to find out more. And now, back to our interview. But if they do come from the future, do you think they would be able to alter The past, meaning now?
No. You see, that's the whole thing. Now that is what's going. You have to read Igor Novikov. Things happening now happen because they came back. It's what's called a self-consistent loop in time. Now, there is a very good popular book that came out. He's not a physicist, but he's a pretty smart philosopher. His name is Eric Wargo. And he talks about all what you're asking. He knows some physics. He doesn't know what I know, but he basically has a good intuition, and he's able to explain. We don't change. The past history has happened because there have been interventions from the future. It's all what's called a self-consistent loop in time. A guy named Igor Novikov in Moscow actually wrote a book called The River of Time. He explains all this stuff. Well, there are actually two theories. There also is the David Deutsch theory. There is a theory of the alternate timelines. If you change the past, you go into an alternate universe. Maybe. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not as... I tend to think it's a self-consistent loop. There are two different ways of looking at it. Okay, and I'm not saying that one is right and the other is wrong. I happen to favor one, but it could be the other one too. Did you see Philip K. Dick, The Man in the High Castle, on Amazon Prime about parallel universes? It's a story in which Hitler wins World War II. He gets, because Heisenberg got the atom bomb before we did, and they use the atom bomb, they blow up Washington, D.C., and then the Nazis take over half of America, and the Japs take over the other half, and but the alternate universes are communicating with each other, and this whole kind of, so that's another possibility. That's when David Grush says there are other dimensions, they're interdimensional creatures, some of these ETs. Yeah, he's talking about this multiple universes, and the universes are colliding, so to speak. That's a possibility. Both are possible. So the point is, if you change the past, you can, but you wind up in a different universe, different timeline. That's
a possibility.
Let's say they're both possible.
But as far as we are concerned, we would not know that because we are in a universe. We don't know about.
Well, no, we may know. No, actually, that's a good. That's something that we can't settle it in this program. But no, we can know because it could be. See, this is what David Grush in the Congress was talking about, that some of these aliens may be interdimensional creatures like the parallel universes next door. And in fact, these drones that
they would know.
Well, they may be coming from a parallel universe.
Yes.
See, we don't know where they're coming from yet. So it's all up for grabs. I mean, actually, it turns out that in a certain sense, the Igor Novikov self-consistent loop theory is consistent with the multiple universes, because everything is consistent along a single timeline, but there are different timelines. But we can jump from one timeline to the other, maybe through these wormholes. It's a whole. Listen, reality. This is what's called in the soul. We had this meeting a couple of weeks ago. Gary Nolan at Stanford, the Soul Foundation.
Yes.
Okay. And they're talking about ontological shock with the disclosure. So everything I'm saying is severe ontological shock, which most people won't understand, or if they may be afraid, and they actually have reason to be afraid. Actually, be afraid. These things up there could be dangerous. So, in fact, we better assume they're dangerous, because even if it turns out they're not dangerous, maybe they are dangerous. We just don't know, because, let me say this, we live in a big universe, right? Life is universal. It's all DNA, it's all chemistry, quantum mechanics, okay? Many exoplanets, like Earth planets out there, we now know that. That means there are many different alien species out there. It turns out the discovery of the warp drive, of controlling gravity with small amounts of energy, how consciousness works, everything I'm telling you is pretty elementary physics, which means that any civilization out there that reaches sort of where we are now, they're going to discover the same thing we're discovering. And some of them are a lot older than us, so they've had this information for a longer time, right? So, and I happen to know from classified material I've been read in on, I know of 3 different kinds of aliens There are more than, but I know for sure 3 different kinds. I don't want to go into detail right now. Not all of them, we should assume, are friendly. The ones that are from us in the future are probably friendly because they
want to preserve themselves.
They want to preserve themselves.
Yeah.
But the other one. So these things that are flying around New Jersey, all over the world, this is first contact, I think. I could be wrong. Everything I'm saying could be wrong. Let me just say, whenever a scientist speaks, his knowledge, my knowledge is uncertain. I can only say with probability, given all the information I have, I form a judgment. I'm 85 years old. I've been doing physics for over 70 years, since I was 15 or so, right? Okay? I studied with the top scientists of the world, of the history, Werner Heisenberg, John Wheel, Richard Feynman, you name it, David Bohm. So I'm telling you, on my experience, what I think, and I could be wrong, because any science could be wrong. But I have what's called Bayesian probability level of confidence over 90% that I'm right. Let's see if I'm proved wrong. We'll know soon enough. Okay, so I say these things out there, not all, we can't assume they're friendly. If they are, this guy Frank Milburn, I used to work with, going a little, I won't say, Frank says that they're Russian drones, that the Russians, so they're hostile. He thinks they're hostile. I don't think they're Russian drones from now. If they could be Russian or Chinese, communists or Iranian, but they're from the future. They have the technology I'm talking about. They're not ordinary conventional drones. So I don't know if they're Russian or not. They could be from Alpha Centauri, or they could be anywhere. Okay, we'll find out soon enough. But right now, our government is clueless. Okay? And one reason our government is clueless is because they're not talking to the right people, and they should be talking to me. Okay, the A team, not the B team. The Russians invited me to Moscow last year. I didn't go. So the Russians know what's going on, I think, a little better than we know what's going on. So,
why do you think a more complete disclosure? I guess there's some soft disclosure happening right now.
Well, it looks pretty hard to me.
It does?
No longer soft. I thought these guys.
No, but I mean, why doesn't the government come out and say, this is what
because the government is afraid of what they do not understand.
I want to change gears, talk a little bit about Café Trieste.
Well, maybe
this is more like a fun topic.
Okay.
You've been a regular there many years ago.
Yeah.
But why is it so famous?
Yeah, well, Café Trieste is like the Café de la Paix and all these great cafes in Paris, where all the bohemians, the beatniks, or everybody would hang out. It's cafe society, Bohemia. In fact, a guy named Herbert Gold, he just died, he was 100 years old, wrote a book called Bohemia. It's the history of the whole Bohemian beatnik movement. Not so much hippies, but the beatnik, the Bohemian movement, starting in Bohemia, in Czechoslovakia, Paris, Greenwich Village, San Francisco. And, it's North Beach is the Italian neighborhood, also Chinese. And both, in fact, pretty much equally. Yes, we're all Coppola, so we're all these. Whenever anybody from Hollywood or from Broadway would come to San Francisco, they would come to North Beach because it's the most fun. It's like
We'll go take a look. And one final question: what would you say is the biggest threat to humanity right now? Is it nuclear war? Is it the decline of morality or spirituality?
No, it's all the woke, all this. The woke stuff, all this DEI, diversity, all this stuff. What it really is, it really is an old Soviet program from Stalin. And there's this guy named Yuri Bezmenov. He's now dead. He was a KGB defector to the CIA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He talked about the different stages a society goes through.
That's exactly what it is. Because I know, I was part of it. Okay, remember, I was born in 1939. I grew up in in the Jewish intellectual New York City, milieu, same as like Bernie Sanders and all these guys, okay? Chuck Schumer, all these guys, we all grew up, the same, even Donald Trump. I'm 7 years older than Donald Trump. So I grew up in, all my friends' parents were either card-carrying members of the Communist Party USA or were, sympathetic. And the same in England, with the Kim Philby, all these guys. And in fact, it was all over. In the 1930s, Stalin, first of all, the Russians were very smart people. The Pavlov, psychology, mind control, all that stuff. They created a program of they used women, for the young men to have free sex. All that, sex, drugs, rock and roll, everything, we were all part of it. We took advantage of it. I must say, I was a lefty myself. I grew up in the left wing. I could have been like Bernie Sanders, right? All my friends were communists, right? We did the Peace and Freedom Party, the Mississippi Freedom Rides, Vietnam teach-in committees, the Peace and Freedom Party. I was probably, Angela Davis. I knew Angela Davis. I knew the Black Panthers. They stayed at my friend's house in La Jolla. I mean, we were all part of that whole thing. But also, I was both. I had both sides. I was also volunteered for the CIA. I mean, I was like Zelig. I was everywhere. Okay. So I know this happened. I knew Herbert Marcuse, who was one of the key guys. He was actually in the OSS, but he was what do they call that school? I forget one of the German school. In any case, he was one of the guys who created Angela Davis and a lot of these movements. All the stuff we're seeing now.
Frankfurt School.
The Frankfurt School.
Yeah.
I used to go to his parties. I mean, that was my wife at the time was part of that. So I grew up in all that. I was a witness to the whole thing. And we thought we were just having fun. We thought having free sex, and America is bad, and this. Well, America is bad in some ways, but all these things. So I was part of that whole thing, and I knew a lot of these people who are now leading the Democrat Party. So these are people I grew up with. They can't fool me, and it's it's a complex situation, but it's what Uri called moral. What did he call it? Moral ideological subversion.
Yes.
Ideological subversion. And I saw it happen. All this with the transgender, the men don't know which bathroom to use. All this stuff is confusing people and making it easy. Okay, now, the Soviets did want to take over the world. Vladimir Putin does not want to take over the world. The Chinese communists, they want to take over the world, but not with guns. They're doing it, economically. They build, their stuff is not very good though, right? It doesn't last very long. But, so the Chinese communists want to take over the world economically, soft takeover. They just want to do business. They want to make money.
Dr. Sarfatti, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
This is good television, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that, but,
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for watching another episode of Bay Area Innovators. If you enjoyed this episode and you know someone who should be on our show, please send us an email at sfbay@epochtimes.com. We would love to hear from you. Thank you and see you next week.